Have you ever wondered if even the insects have an innate sense of justice? A marimbonda with its bite is good enough. Have the ability to use the tool, and you understand that there's something wrong about him. Looks like something from the movie, right? But as it turned out, in Tucson, a city in the joint of the state of Arizona, it became a real lesson of morality, the mechanical area of 220 volts. And what's even more amazing, it all came right to the door of my shop, where the smells of gasoline, grease, and prayer, if you mix up in the air, creating a scenario in which you could just as easily be a scene from a story of justice of Anonymous. Hello, my name is Kevin Davis. I am the owner of the place. That is, more than it appears to be a joint workshop is a stage for the stories that defy logic and make us think. Here's your daily routine is to change the oil, adjust the brakes and exchange a few words with their customers. But once in a while, the destination resolves to put on a garment that no one was expecting. And it's hard not to get involved when the chaos comes in new, chaotic, and at the same time it's so poetically. Do you ever feel that life is at times, it tries to teach you something, but in a way that weird? It is, at times, it sends out signals that look like bad joke, but in fact, these are the lessons that come straight from the universe, with a dash of humor and a healthy dose of justice to others. Stay with me until the very end, because that's all we are going to tell you today, a story that is a mixture of a robber. He thought that was what was going to come out with a bag full of screws, a shop that has turned the stage to a real tornado, a golden, and a lesson in that. I'm sure it will make you think twice before you do anything stupid. And the crazy thing? All of this has happened, late one afternoon, in common with an ordinary guy, wanting only to a theft, a simple one. But what he doesn't know is that, sometimes, the universe has a specific place for each one in his place, and in such a case, the outcome was hardly surprising. So, get ready, because it's the story that follows is full of twists and turns, humor, and, of course, that hint of a moral that is only able to teach in a creative way. Now, to understand what is really behind all of this, you need to go to the next step. To the extent that the parts are going into place, we see that many times in life, comes as no surprise just when you least expect it. That moment of confusion, of doubt, if it turns into an opportunity to look beyond the obvious. It was as if the universe was always preparing us for something greater, even if, at the time, it may seem difficult to understand. And it is at this point that we begin to realize that each and every detail, however small they may seem to you, you have a purpose, a message that only your heart can't interpret it as clearly as possible. When we pause to reflect on all that we have lived up to this, you can feel a stronger connection to our own history. They are not just isolated events, but pieces of a story, even with its ups and downs, so it makes sense on a large plot of our life. And, at the same time, which seemed to be a failure or a mistake turns out to be a bridge to something better. It's like a lesson in subtle, that is for the universe to teach us, if only we are willing to listen calmly, slowly, and with an open heart. If this understanding, it made sense to you, leave it here in the comments that most touched his heart. Share these perceptions. It is a way for us to connect even more, creating a network of understanding and support from each other. Furthermore, this content has brought her some comfort, or reflection on, and enjoy the video. It's a simple gesture, but one that strengthened the exchange of energy. And, of course, if you want to continue to explore the journey of self-discovery with me, please subscribe to the channel. This is an opportunity to grow and learn together, because this course only makes sense when there are so many walking hand in hand. Right now, for us to continue to deepen this topic, there's something even more important what you need to understand. And, of course, if you want to continue to explore the journey of self-discovery with me, please subscribe to the channel. This is an opportunity to grow and learn together, because this course only makes sense when there are so many walking hand in hand. Right now, for us to continue to deepen this topic, there's something even more important what you need to understand. When we find out that the deepest layer of our lives, we realize that the greatest obstacle to many of the times, it is not outside, but within us. It's like an invisible wall, built up over a number of years, decision-making, beliefs, and experiences. That is, for the most part, you don't even realize that you've created. And on this wall, for a more solid as it may seem, it is not something fixed, but it is an illusion, and that we can make it, if we have the courage to look within, with all their heart. Courage. Sometimes it is more difficult for you to cope with any challenge to the external, because it requires us to confront our own shadow, our deepest doubts, our fears, the more sticky. But, at the same time, it is in this conflict that we find a cure, and the liberation that we so long ago. It is as if, in the course of a lifetime, people were piling on layers of deceit, of self-deception, a constant need to please, to fit in, to be accepted. And the layers become so dense that they can make us lose our connection to who we really are. The one real self, the real thing, they have their own beliefs and their own sorrows, and it is hidden, almost invisible under the mask that we wear in order to survive to the expectations of others. And a lot of times we get caught in the trap of believing that we are what others will expect of us, and that our happiness is dependent on qualifications and external, that our decision-making, they need to appeal to someone or something outside of ourselves. But, in essence, that is an illusion that takes us away from what really matters in our own truth. So, the big question arises: how to break through these invisible barriers? How to gain access to this inner space, which, for a long time he was silent? The answer to this lies in the willingness of the us to learn the truth, to allow ourselves to feel it, to make space for silence and reflection. Because of this silence, many a times, we find that the noise of the world keep you from seeing it, the voice of the soul. And in such a voice, for a much more subtle as it may seem, it is the compass in the most loyal that we have. It will guide you in the direction of what you really seek is what we make it to vibrate, which connects us with our essence, the most pure. When you start listening to that voice, it changes everything. The decisions are clear, and the choices that are more aligned with the sense of purpose becomes more intense. It is as if you've discovered a secret map that shows the paths which before seemed to be invisible. But it requires bravery, because it means letting go of old patterns, to give up the certainty that, in fact, it was only the illusion of security. And, in the process, a lot of the times we come across with the strength, that inner voice that tries to convince us to give up, to get back to what he was comfortable with, even if that comfort was more than a prison in disguise. It is in this moment that we must remember that freedom is in your authenticity, and the courage to be who you really are, without the mask, without the mask, without the mask. And here is where one of the greatest truths we can begin to understand that no one can set us free, not for ourselves. The journey is the internal, personal, and unique to you. Not enough to seek out the one that can only be found within. This is one of the biggest illusions that we have, to believe that happiness, peace, and fulfillment you are on to something external. In fact, it is within each of us waiting to be awakened, enlightened by our own desire to get to know each other intimately. And, in doing so, we realize that our greatest strength lies in vulnerability, and the ability to opt into our shortcomings, our failures, our hurts. Because, deep down, that make us human, real, complex. And when you embrace this fact, we begin to free ourselves from the shackles that imprisoned for such a long time. I now want to go more in depth on this subject in this quest for authenticity, for a connection with your true self. It is a path that requires patience, compassion, and, above all, self-love. It is not a race, nor a competition, but rather a journey of self-discovery, that it should be carried out with respect for yourself. The more we allow ourselves to be who we are, the more aligned we are with our purpose, the more fluid it becomes to the flow of life. And there you have it. Everything that seemed to be a difficult, cumbersome, or impossible to achieve, he begins to change, because, in its essence, it is all a matter of perception, choice, and your courage to be open to the new, the unknown. And, in the process, we have learned that the greatest strength is in the simplicity, to be ourselves, without fear, without shame, and without reservation. It's a journey, and reveals to him that, in fact, we are so much more than we think, and that is our essence. It is a never-ending source of light, and that when you wake up to that fact, everything around us becomes. And then, suddenly, it all makes perfect sense. You will begin to realize that the freedom which so much was seeking has always been within you, hidden beneath layers of fear and doubt. And then, when you release yourself from those bonds, with a sense of genuine peace invading his heart, a peace that is not dependent on external circumstances, but from an alignment of the inner and deep. And in that moment, life ceases to be a constant struggle, and goes to a dance in a harmonious, where each step is guided by its core closer to the truth. This finding, in this transformation, and it is the one that really keeps us going, because it connects us with our beauty and the fact that we are all unique, imperfect, but it is absolutely full of our authenticity. And then, when that is understood, we realize that the greatest gift we can give ourselves is just the courage to be who we are without fear, without masks, with all the vulnerability that makes us human. I now want to go more in depth on this topic. And it is precisely at this point that we begin to understand that the whole of the pursuit of perfection, and, by the validation, in fact, it was an attempt to hide what we truly are, an attempt to get away from our true essence. Because, deep down, the truth is that our imperfections is what makes us special. There is no beauty greater than the one who is born of authenticity, and that which is born of the recognition that we are a mosaic of successes and mistakes, dreams realized, and the wounds healed. When you stop to think about it, we realize that our greatest strength lies in the courage to show who they really are, in the willingness to open your heart to all of our vulnerabilities, because it is in them that it is for our greater connection with the universe and with others, and with life. It is as if, by agreeing to each and every part of us, we were, in fact, opening the door to a freedom that I never imagined to be possible, with a freedom that is born out of the realization that you no longer have to hide behind a mask because of our authenticity. It is the one that really makes us as a whole. It often is accompanied by a profound silence, that silence is not empty but is filled with answers to what had previously been hidden under the layers of fear and judgment. And in this silence, one can hear what really matters to you, our inner voice, the one who calls us to be true to ourselves even if it means displeasing opinions, to break up with your expectations or we face our own limitations. Because, when we give ourselves to this fact, we find that all the things that seemed to be difficult, and it seemed to be a battle, it turned out to be an opportunity for growth, and the strengthening of the internal, the recovery of the core of the most pure. And, in doing so, we begin to realize that each and every scar, every doubt, every fear, it's part of our world, from the screenplay that leads to a version that is closer to the truth, and stronger than ourselves. The freedom that comes from this understanding, it is like a light that illuminates every dark corner of one's soul, revealing the biggest secret that we have. It's the very thing that makes us more human than any of the ideal of perfection can make you look like. Because, after all, perfection is an illusion, a mask we wear to hide who you really are, while the imperfect is our signature of authenticity, and the one that gives color to our lifetime. It is then that we realize that the true courage is to accept all of this, of accepting our limitations and our possibilities, in a dance of constant self-discovery and self-love. When we take this one step further, it changes everything. The barriers are no longer an opinion heavy, because we see them as an essential part of our growth. And, at the same time, we can begin to understand that the greatest gift that you can give to the world, that has happened to be the truth, in our vulnerability, our essence is pure. And, in the process, we have learned that the universe conspires in favor of the one who accepts them, of whom it is to be exactly as they are, without the mask. Because, in essence, closer to the truth, that acceptance is a form of love that echoes everywhere, touching lives and inspiring others to break free from your own prison built in. And it is in this movement of self-discovery, which we find true peace, one that doesn't depend on external circumstances, but it is born from within, and that alignment is silent as to who we are and who we choose to be. Every step of this journey reveals a new layer of ourselves, as if we were descending a ladder, infinite self, in which each step leads us to a deeper understanding, an acceptance of the deepest, with a freedom that only people who know the truth and can't try it. I now want to go more in depth on this topic, because, when you think about all of this, we realize that the true power lies in our ability to transform doubts into certainty, to transform fear into courage, to turn pain into a learning experience. And all of this happens when we allow ourselves to look within, without fear, with love and compassion, because the only way we were able to see beyond the surface, in addition to the collections of the outside, in addition to our own limitations, that is, in fact, are the stories that we tell ourselves, of course. Authenticity is born in such a courage to look in the mirror and see not only what they want to showcase to the world, but it's also the one that we are in a more real and deeper inside of you. And, in doing so, we take a major step toward freedom, because we believe that we are whole, just as you are, without the need for approval, without the need for validation, as this validity has always been here. They get on each and every beat of your heart, just waiting for us to recognize and celebrate it. And it is through the celebration of day of our lives, which is the greatest change of all, is the one who sets us free to be who we really are, without fear, without shame, and with all the beauty of which only the authenticity of it can be revealed. And it is through the celebration of day of our lives, which is the greatest change of all, is the one who sets us free to be who we really are, without fear, without shame, and with all the beauty of which only the authenticity of it can be revealed. When we begin to look within, to discover the trap that a lot of times we hide what we feel or who we think we ought to be, it's all change in a way that's almost invisible, but profoundly powerful. It's as if, when you open the doorway, a soft glow began to light up every dark corner, every doubt, every fear that we have, without realizing it. And, in the process, we discover that what we thought to be our end, in fact they were the only barriers that we've created in my head. The walls are built by outside expectations for the opinions of others, because of the stories that we were told that, for some reason, it turned out to be absolute truths. The freedom to be who we are, it is like a flood that you find in your way, even when we run into obstacles along the way. And, as it allows the genuineness you realize that your life gets a taste of a different, more intense, more real. It is not a never-ending quest for approval or validation, but it's a journey of deep connection with the one that beats inside of you. In this connection, it is so subtle and at the same time it's so transformative, that is, too often, they go unnoticed in the day-to-day, while the action continued, but look out for themselves, even though they were already completely changed. It's as if, when you look in the mirror of the soul, you will see a version that is the most real, the most powerful, most closely aligned with your purpose, your want for yourself. And it, more than it may seem simple, it is a silent revolution. Because when you allow yourself to be authentic, and life is no longer a part of the drama to make it a unique work of art, every decision, every relationship, every dream will have a meaning that is deeper, more closely aligned with who you really are. It's like, to be free from the bondage of the expectations of the outside, we begin to live in it with a lightness that doesn't depend on circumstances, but for sure, the inner of which we are in harmony with our true nature. And in it, life is starting to flow in a way that's more natural, more spontaneous, like a dance that only makes sense when we are in tune with the rhythm of your heart. Still, this is a journey to authenticity, and it is not a linear path, not free from challenges. Many of the times, there are moments of doubt, of dependence, of the worries that seem to be trying to pull us back to what is more comfortable for you, even if it's not true for us. But then comes an important piece of information. the more we connect with the truth within, the stronger we get to experience a moment of resistance. Because we know that they are just testing, proofs of that we are on the right track, we are breaking down the standards that we were. And with each step taken in this direction, it's a part of us, becomes stronger, full of courage, of hope, of which it is possible to make a living in a way that's more aligned, more free and more on our. And it is precisely this movement, the courage, the decision-making of the day, and it makes all the difference. Because, at the end of the day, it's not about a big win on time, but also on a series of small choices that, taken together, they build a new life. Each and every time that we have chosen for you is good for us. It is true. It is a seed that we plant for the life that is more authentic. And, with time, the seeds will germinate, grow, and make a difference in everything around us. The authenticity is still a way off at the moment, and she had seen the way in which there is a force that pushes us forward even when the path seems difficult to fit into the story. I now want to go more in depth on this topic. When do we begin to understand that truth is our greatest power, we realize that it is a bridge to something bigger than themselves. It's like, to be free of the mask, we connect to CMOs with an energy that is more pure, more real, and that gives us the power, silent for a change. This power doesn't come from the outside. It's not something you can buy or win through the surface. It is born from within, out of a conscious decision to honor who we are, in fact, accepting our imperfections, our flaws, our vulnerabilities, and is the same as moving forward. This is the agreement that we find the strength you never knew you had a heart, that causes us to challenge the fear that causes us to strive for our dreams. No fear of appearing vulnerable. Because, deep down, that authenticity, that is, a way of self-declaration silent, that we are enough, just as you are. And, we have to assume so. We seek external validation and start to live in a much more real with ourselves. This is the foundation of it all. When we learn to love in our lives, everything around you starts to change. People notice this change, and even if they do not understand it completely, feel the power of the one who really knows you. And in that moment, life is starting to plan for, and all that has to come from a place of self-love and authenticity. It is the more light, the more the real, the more that's made to last. And then, to the extent that this day is going even further, we've noticed that you're not alone. Why, when we connect to our truth, to open up also to connect with each other in a way that's more true. There is no more such a face mask that separates them, the fear of being seen, in fact. And so, our relationships become more and more humane, the most sincere, the most profound. Each exchange will have a greater meaning because it is not just a surface, but it is an expression of who we really are, our emotions, our vulnerabilities and our strengths. And, at the same time, we understand that authenticity is also an invitation for others to do the same. It's like, to be free, to create a kind of energy where it is the sincerity and self-love are spread out in a natural, very catchy. And, even in the face of so much beauty, there is still a part of you. That question arises, is it worth it? Is this a journey of self-discovery and authenticity? It really turns all of a sudden? And the answer often comes in the form of silence, of a thin feeling that was the case, and that every step taken in this direction, it is a victory for the silent, an achievement that goes beyond words. Because, in the end, it all boils down to whether it's a daily choice to be true to himself, and to the fact that, no matter how hard it is to live in accordance with truth, is the one that gives meaning to our lives. And when we do that, we are, in fact, reaching out to more and more to our purpose, that the more deep you had always been there, waiting for the time to flourish. And as this thought takes shape, in the sense that we are on the right path, will only increase. Because you are, in essence, that the quest for authenticity, it is the search for freedom, by weight, of a life that touches our very being. And, to the extent that we allow ourselves to such a connection, we can begin to understand the transformation that we are looking out for us, is only true when you start from the inside out. It is a journey of discovery that never ends, a quest to align with our dreams, with our deepest truth, courage to acknowledge our own history, with all its nuances, its pros and cons. This is the true essence of living to the full, to feel whole, to walk with an open heart, mind, and soul at peace, knowing that no matter what storms of our authenticity is our greatest strength, our light brighter. Says right there, I came to realize the truth. And as the journey unfolds, we realize that every step you take, every choice, every silence, the interior reveals a deeper level of who we really are. It's not an external search for the answers that are already within us, hidden under layers of self-doubt and fears that they insist on you to convince you that we are not enough on its own. It is a stillness that today there was a silence that is listening to our inner selves, which invites us to discover things that have always been there, waiting for us with courage to look within, and to recognize our own truth. And, in the process, we have learned that the stories we tell ourselves, a lot of times charged, the criticism and expectations, it will need to be reviewed, revised as of a landscape, which becomes a long time, but it will always reflect our very essence, the one that never ceased to exist, even when we are ignorant of or deny. As to the authenticity in this way, It is no longer a goal to become a natural extension of an honest relationship with their own soul. When we stop seeking validation outside, and we started to look at the inside, we feel a freedom that cannot be explained, only a form of entertainment. It's like opening a window in an old house, letting the fresh air come in and renovate each and every corner of what seemed to be drowned out by the weight of expectations on the outside. That's freedom. It's a quiet strength that pushes us to go forward, to face up to our own personal ghosts, with a smile of light, because they do not have the power to define us. And, well, life is a phrase, more true to who we are. We dance among our shadows, our lights on, in a harmony that only makes sense when you stop fighting about who we are, and we are very happy to accept them with love, with patience, with compassion, and mercy. The real transformation happens in this moment, in which we look for something outside of ourselves, and we are beginning to recognize the richness that lies in our history, with all its ups and downs, with its sorrows and joys. Each and every scar, every tear, every smile, hidden in the memory of all that makes up the mosaic of unique and who we are for a piece of art that's only revealed on the courage to be who you really are. And, as we are for the freedom of the mask, we see that the world is transformed, because that's all we carry into the heart. It reflects in the way we communicate, to love, to live. And, well, the universe conspires in favor of our authenticity, bringing in the opportunity, dating, and life lessons that show. What's really important is that the connection is sincere with you from the bridge, to recognize that links us to our very essence, the most pure. To understand this, we realize that our greatest strength is not in perfection, but in the courage to be imperfect, to accept our vulnerabilities as a part of our growth. And in that recognition, there is an incredible beauty, and a peace that is not dependent on external circumstances, but from a certain built of that, we are exactly where we need to be, with all of our nuances, all of our truths. It is this deep understanding that we find the true power to change your reality, because when you align with who you are, in fact, all around us, if you adjust the fit, if it shows in a way you've never imagined. Life is no longer a constant struggle, and it is a dance. The smooth is a journey of discovery, continuous, where every step brings us closer to our essence is genuine. I now want to go more in depth on this topic. You know, when we look for answers outside, you start to hear a voice that's always been there, but a lot of times, it was hidden by the noise of the world and our own intuition, that inner spark that guides us to hang. You know every detail of what you really need in order to feel complete. That voice, it's not something that we can hear with the ears of a physical, but with an open heart, soul, tune into the truth. And then, when you connect to it, we realize that our decisions, our actions, our choices will reflect an authenticity that gives us strength, give us the peace that we are to understand, that we are more than our stories, the more you do it, the labels that we carry, or to the expectations that have been laid down. We are a sum total of possibilities. It is a power that touches them. The courage to be who we are without being afraid to be different, not afraid to be ourselves. And then, in a movement of acceptance, all wins it in a different light, a color, the more vibrant. We found that authenticity is a bridge that connects us to the universe. It allows us to gain access to the creativity without borders, the capacity to turn obstacles into opportunities, and the pain on the learning crisis in the catalysts of evolution is true. It is an invitation to look beyond the surface, to see beyond what the eyes can see and understand that true beauty lies in imperfection, vulnerability, sincerity is to be exactly who you are. And so, the journey is no longer a quest for external validation, and turns out to be a celebration of the homeland, in an act of self-love, which echoes the way in which we relate to the world and the people who cross our path. It is a recognition that, as we welcome them with kindness, we are allowed to make our light shine even more brightly, illuminating not only our lives but also the lives of those who have been lucky enough to share that energy with us. And in that moment of deep connection with our inner selves, it is clear that you are a part of something much bigger than we can imagine, and the web is invisible to the possibilities, which takes place from that moment on that we have decided to accept and love who we really are. And the latter, in turn, frees us from the prison that a lot of times we create in our own minds, for a string of questions that keep you from the living with the fullness. When we are free from these chains inside, you start to realize that the world is out there. It also turns out that the opportunity to appear in unexpected ways, they are the people who are actually passionate in our often come to us as if they were the voices of courage to be authentic. And it all starts with a simple act of the mind, truth, and the truth is enough. You are worthy of love, respect, and happiness, just as we are. I now want to go more in depth on this subject. And then, when you make this dip, we realize that this is a journey of self-discovery is a constant, and a dance with no end in between what was, what is, and what it can be. Each step we take brings us closer to a version that is closer to the truth about ourselves. No masks, no lies, and with an honesty that gives you the strength to move forward even when the path seems too difficult or unknown. And, in it, we discover that life is a gift, an opportunity to evolve, to learn, to love, and to be loved, unconditionally, with all of the core to the surface of the skin. Because, deep down, what we are looking for, is this a genuine connection with our own soul is a harmony that makes us feel alive and full of peace. And when you realize this, we realize that our greatest victory is not in the achievement of something that's out there, but in the courage to accept who you are and to live the truth, with pride, with light, and with love. Says right there, I came to realize the truth. And, at the same time, this understanding leads us to a kind of liberation, a silent, almost invisible in the eyes of the world, but it is extremely powerful in all of us. We notice that, on that never-ending quest for the validation, recognition, external, and in truth, it was an attempt to fill a void that can only be filled in by such a connection is built, and by this recognition, and genuine to who we are, in fact. And it's fascinating to see how, when you start to accept that this is the essence, the life seems to open up in ways that once seemed impossible. It's not about win something, but if you allow yourself to be, if you allow yourself to feel, to allow yourself to live without the masks, which the company insists on the need to put in, no papers on you at times they don't belong to me anymore. It's a kind of detachment from what is believed to be necessary in order to be accepted, because, in fact, what we are looking for this is the love of this agreement that is only found when you stop looking outside and start looking inside it. And, in the process, we found out that everything seemed to be in a constant struggle, a battle against your own limitations, and, in fact, it's an opportunity for us to meet again. Every challenge, every pain, every moment of doubt, it is a bridge that takes us deeper into an understanding of who we really are. And this is the bridge that it often seems daunting to get through. It is, in fact, a way of self-discovery. The more you go, the more you realize that what really matters is not the advice of others. It is not for the approval of those who are next to us, but for our own truth, our authenticity. And it's this authenticity that, in turn, is a powerful force that drives us to become better, more healthy, more honest with ourselves and with the world around us. It is also at this time that we realize that the impact of such a change within you can be part of our life. It's not something that happens in an hour or so to the other one, but it's a transformation that is being consolidated with small, daily actions with choices, the courage to say no to that, not us, and it really touches our heart. And, to the extent that we are going to live that truth, and beginning to feel a freedom that I never had experienced before. The freedom that comes from within and is not dependent on external circumstances, but that which is born of the recognition that we are whole, in spite of all our faults, even with all the mistakes that we have. It is at this point that your life will have a different color for a deeper, with a lightness that makes us want to explore the each and every detail, every nuance of your journey. This course, however, it is not straightforward or easy. Many of the times, we are faced with doubts, fears, and even looked back, but what's important is that you understand it's all part of the process. In each cycle, and each stage is an opportunity to learn, to become stronger. And, as we move forward, our vision expands, our vision becomes clearer, and it seemed to be an impossible mission becomes a journey of self-discovery. And in this adventure, and each step is given, with sincerity and courage in closer and closer to that essence which is our most pure and strong. And it is precisely this fact that makes us connect to what is really important in our life. What does it make us feel alive in a way that is genuine and long-lasting? Right now, I want you to go deeper in the subject line, because that is the understanding that we are all responsible for this change is something that is a game changer. If we learn that we have the power to shape our reality to what we grow internally, we have started to understand that our attitudes, our thoughts, our feelings, they are the seeds of a life more in tune with who you really are. And in that moment, it all becomes a matter of conscious choice, to decide every day if we nurture fear or love, to doubt, to or for the reliability, endurance, or for the delivery time. And that, as simple as it may seem, it is the key to for a change, a radical, to be silent, but that reverberates through the rest of our lives. It is as if each and every decision is an opportunity to reaffirm our connection to chill more in depth, an opportunity to reaffirm that we are deserving of a life full of love and peace. And, if you notice that we have removed from many of the restraints that we have, without realizing it, the limiting beliefs that have made us to believe that we weren't able to, and that's something out there that was more important than what you feel inside. And in this release, for a more quiet, that is to say, it's a revolution inside that turns everything around us, because, in its essence, it is also changing the way we interact with the world and with others, and our own story. Each step in this direction, it is an affirmation that we are on the right path, even if that path will be full of curves, ups and downs, moments of silence, and the discovery of Delaware. And so, on this journey of self-discovery becomes a delicate dance between what we are and what we want and what we can become. And, by understanding this connection, we can begin to understand that true transformation comes not from without, but from within, from a decision-making every day to be true to our inner selves. And when you do that, everything around you begins to reflect the light. This is the authenticity that are now pressing for stronger, clearer, more of us. And in that moment, we realize that the greatest change is not an achievement, but it is a rediscovery of a reconnect with the things that we have always been, and that, for some reason, we forgot to remind you. And remember, everything is changed, everything is illuminated, and the feeling of peace, of wholeness, it starts to make sense, in a way that I had never done it before. I now want to go more in depth on this topic. It is this quest for understanding who you really are is like a journey to a silent, almost invisible. They often get lost in a routine, and by the expectations of others, on the masks, which have built for us to fit into a world that insists on telling us who we should be. But when you stop, taking a deep breath, and take a look inside, and realize that the true essence of you never got out of there. It was hidden away, such as a fire, who insists to stay on, even that is cloaked in a haze of doubts, fears, and limitations. And it is in that moment of silence, the connection itself, and that changes everything. It is not a change that comes from outside, from the conquest of the material or social approval, but an inner transformation, a deep experience that redefines our understanding of the value and purpose in our lives. This discovery, many, many times, it's like a wake up gently, but irresistibly. It makes us question everything that you got it right or not enough. We have begun to realize that the search for external validation, on the achievements of the surface, is nothing more nor less than an attempt to fill a void that can only be filled by the contact is genuine with the truth. When we give ourselves to the point of our story, we are confronted with our own limitations, our fears out of sight, but it is also an immense freedom that comes from a recognition that everything we need is already inside of us. It is as if, for a moment, you could see it through the curtain that's always kept us in our own light, and to do that, everything gets a whole new dimension, a new color. The realization that we are, forever, able to reinvent ourselves, to reunite with the essence of pure, liberating it is. And, in the process, we learn to look at our own shadows, with a compassion and understanding that they are part of a greater whole, that is in need of attention and care, so that, like a child seeking attention, to feel loved. When we begin to embrace these parts, it becomes the path to a more beautiful, more true to the trend. And that evolution is not a straight line, it is not a definitive conquest, but the dance continued between what we are, and who we can become. Every step you take, every scar, every moment of doubt, it's all part of the story that you are writing to the authenticity of the one who really knows you, and if you accept it. And then, when you realize all of this, it is clear that our greatest strength lies in our vulnerability and our capacity to look inside and not be afraid, to have to accept that we are imperfect, but it is also infinitely capable of change. With this understanding, it is like a key that opens the door to a universe of possibilities that, until now, seem to be hidden behind a wall of insecurity. When we allow this connection is true, and the world around us, we start to reflect that light, and this is the peace that comes from within, and it will become a lighter, more beautiful, more aligned with our true purpose. It's as if, as we are reconnecting with our inner selves, we begin to see beyond the surface, beyond what has been taught to believe that it is enough, and you have to live in it with an authenticity which seemed to be unreachable. And then, at that moment, the big reveal is that the change that we seek in, the one that really makes the difference, not the search for something on the outside, but the rescue of the things that has always been with us, hidden under the layers of conditioning and expectations. This is a journey of courage, being honest with your own heart. It requires patience, but rewards you with a sense of peace and fulfillment that no other external has been able to provide. It's a reunion with our lives, more pure, more true, and it reminds us of who we are, far more than the sum of our achievements or failures. We are on a wave of life, and the infinite potential. They just need a moment of silence to recognize and reconnect to your game. I now want to go more in depth on this topic. When do we begin to understand that everything we are, in fact, inside the us, it becomes a matter of choice, up the courage to leave what is behind and embrace this new vision of life. This is an invitation for you to leave to seek out the thing that's always been here inside, just waiting for the moment to be remembered, to be lived with authenticity. And, in doing so, we discover that freedom comes from within, not from a conscious decision to reunite with his own essence. For if you allow yourself to be who you truly are, without masks, without the fear of being judged or rejected, it is a journey of self-love, of self-acceptance, which tells us that the most important thing is not what you achieve, but who you become in the process of rediscovery. And then, when you go this path, we realize that our greatest strength is that it is precisely this connection is our truth. It gives us the courage to move forward, with hope, with faith, that is, at each time step, we get even closer to our essence is genuine. This is the key to living a life more full, more authentic, and full of purpose. So, is this a reflection of what is really stopping us from seeing the truth? Where are the masks that they still insist on using it, even knowing that, deep down, they don't represent who you really are? And how can we, from now on, you begin to break down all of this in order to live in a reality that is aligned with our inner selves more deeply? Of these questions, then you may be the first step towards true transformation, one that doesn't depend on external circumstances, but from an internal decision of a heart silent for a look inside and rediscover the light. When we first started to look into the inside, to realize that our decisions, our actions, and even our emotions in order to carry a burden that too many times we are not able to see immediately, things start to change in a way that is subtle, yet profound. It's like opening a window. There's a lot of time has been closed, and all of a sudden, a cool breeze enters the room of your mind, bringing you a whole new perspective, with a clarity that seemed to be beyond our reach. And in that moment, you realize that the actual change is not something that happens in an hour or so to the other one, but with a solid construction, with a daily wake-up to our true essence. Each and every choice we make has a weight, and a consequence of that, many times, we were able to see all the time. And when you figure that out, we started to become more and more aware of the power that we have in our hands. It is not a matter of perfection, but originality. To accept that we are all human, with our own flaws, our fears, and our doubts, but it also has a quiet strength that a lot of times we don't know until we decide to look at it from the front. The hidden reality, which is that many times we try to ignore, it does, in those quiet moments, when we stop running away from ourselves, and we have decided to face up to the truth, the most painful, or upsetting that it appears to be. And this is where you enter the great magic of the transformation. It is not the case for the stress to the external, but the internal connection. When we begin to understand that it really is over the limit and not the circumstances around us, but the beliefs that we carry it within us, we all begin to gain a new significance. To our mind, which is often the scene of conflicts, it can become a strong ally to powerful when you learn to control it, to understand his signs and to use that power in our favor. This is a change of mentality. It's like a wake-up to a start of a potential that was dormant, just waiting for the right moment to bloom. In the background, the journey is a constant search for the truth that lies within your heart. In a quest that takes courage, because a lot of times we have to let go of old patterns, in dreams, trapped in the past, of the expectation that in the trap. But, at the same time, it is a journey of liberation, because when we are free of these shackles, we have discovered that we have been able to create a new reality, one that speaks to our true essence, stripped of their masks, or masks, they don't represent us anymore. And, in doing so, we realize that all of what we are looking for outside of the us, it is an attempt to fill this void, that we can only be completed when we connect with who we really are. This connection is what gives us the strength to move forward, even when everything around you seems to fall apart. Because, deep down, you know that true strength comes from within, out of the faith is silent in his or her ability to start over, to learn from their mistakes, and make difficulties into opportunities for growth. And, in the process, we can begin to understand that the universe conspired in our favor all the time, giving us all the clues and signals, which, very often, we ignore it for fear, for doubt, and for a lack of attention and care. But, when we open our eyes to the truth that is hidden, everything will change. The way we look at if it makes you more aware, more sensitive to the little synchronicities that guide us in exactly the direction that we need to continue to evolve. And so, the journey turns out to be a path of discovery, continuous, where each step teaches you something new about yourself. Each and every challenge, and every victory is a part of the large puzzle we are putting together, with care, with love, and, above all, courage. Because they recognize our own true courage. It requires the courage to look within and to accept what you find there, with no fear, no judgment, just a genuine desire to improve. And, in doing so, we begin to realize that we are much more than we might have previously thought, and that our potential is limitless, and that's the core of it is a never-ending source of light and wisdom. I now want to go more in depth on this topic, and it is precisely at this point that it all starts to make sense, in a way that seemed to be out of reach. Because, when you really delve into the essence of who we are, we realize that the search for the answers outside is nothing more than a reflection of our need to reconnect with the things that have always been inside of you. And that reconnect ion is a process, delicate, almost like a dance, a silent between who we were, who we are, and who we can become. A dance that requires patience, compassion, and, most importantly, genuine willingness to be open to the truth, no matter how simple or complex they may be. And, in so doing, we can begin to understand that the greatest change is not the change in the external world, but in moving house. Because when we change within ourselves and everything around us starts to change in an automatic way. It's like a tidal wave, which, if it spreads, it goes through the layers invisible, and it gets to the deepest part of our being, to reveal a strength that, until now, been hidden under the layers of fear, doubt, and ignorance. This force, which is our true nature, is that you really can move mountains, and that gives us the courage to move forward even in the most difficult times. Why she is fueled by an unquenchable faith in your own ability to be reborn, to start over and create a new chapter in its history. And, in the process, a lot of the times we come across with the doubts and insecurities that seem to drag us back to the familiar place where the fear of making mistakes is even greater than the desire to move forward. But, at the same time, we have learned that these moments of resistance are exactly the ones that most reveal the strength of the organization. Because it's in those moments where everything seems to come crashing down, that we were able to see more clearly what really matters to you. And for that matter, in the background, it's the courage to follow, to have confidence in our light, even when the darkness seems to want to embrace you completely. Because you are, in fact, in this darkness, it's just a phase, a stage during a process of rebirth, which brings us to the most authentic selves. And, when you think about all of this, we realize that the real transformation is to go on a journey of self-discovery, in which we learn to love our imperfections, then the value of our vulnerability, and to understand that we are in a constant state of evolution. There is not an endpoint, a finish line in the final, because we are constantly reinvent itself, as well as adjusting to the new reality that we have created with our own hands. And, in it, the soul is the purpose of the deepest, the one that connects us to a greater force, that it makes us realize that we are part of something much bigger than we can imagine. This awareness brings about a peace that is beyond words, with a certain quiet that you're exactly where you're supposed to be in the perfect moment at just the right time. And then, when you have this understanding, it installs itself within you, it all seems to make sense anymore. Everything is getting a new color, a new intensity. I now want to go more in depth on this topic, because, when you get dunked in the deep, we realize that the real secret lies in the simplicity of accepting that it's all there inside of you. That is, at the core, we are whole, capable of what we want, when we connect with the truth inside of you. And that connection is what gives us the strength and the clarity and the courage to move forward, to change our lives and make an impact on the world around us in a way that is genuine and long-lasting. And, in doing so, we discover that the greatest gift we can give to ourselves, and it's this journey of self-discovery, this is the awakening to our true essence. Because of this, wake up, you find not only the freedom to be who you really are, but it's also a responsibility for us to live this truth with love, empathy, and a sincere desire to evolve every day. So, when you think about all of this, it is clear that the change starts within each of us, and it is the seed of all that we create and make. And it is this seed will only exist when we decide to take care of her dedication, patience, and, above all, self-love. After all, that's the greatest treasure that we can grow, to connect with our essence, the purest, the one who never leaves us, even in moments of the most challenging. And then, when we nurture this connection, we have discovered that we are capable of, for, in the background, it was on the inside of us, just waiting for the moment to be revealed. Post in the comments, I understand you perfectly. And right there is where it all changes for the truth. When we begin to understand that it is this essence that goes with it, who will never abandon us, he is our true source of strength, it all takes on a new meaning. Because, up to now, many times, we stuck to the mask, the expectations of the outside, the opinion, that we are playing farther away from a center. And in this game, you try to please the world. We come bearing in mind that the more freedom you are looking to connect with the things that are, in fact, it is not an easy task, it may not always be comfortable, because you need to have the courage to face our deepest truths, to those who often prefer to hide it or pretend that it doesn't exist. But, in doing so, we find that life becomes much more light, more authentic, more in tune with what really matters to you. This is a journey to reconnect. It's like a homecoming, a return to the heart, that had always been there, quietly, waiting for everyone to hear. And, when you listen to it, we realize that our decisions, our actions, our emotions, all of them will take on a new tone, a new direction. Because, when we are in tune with this formula, your choices are no longer the impulses of the moment, or conditioned responses. They are spontaneous, of who we really are, and this will give us the peace that none of the conquest, the exterior has been able to provide. This is how to find a source of light within you that never goes out, even on the darkest nights. And, the more you can connect to them in this light, the more it grows, enlightening our minds, our relationships, our ability to pay. And there you have it, without realizing it, you start to see that the limit is not outside, but within us. Are your limiting beliefs and fears that we had, all the questions that you eat, all that moves us away from the truth? And then, when you identify these blockages, you have the opportunity to be free of them, of rewriting our story, and create a new narrative that we empower them. We will remind them of who you are, in fact. It is a journey of self-discovery and constant, where the main secret lies in the simplicity of the look within and listen to our voices to be silent, but just as powerful. Because, in the end, it all comes down to is that the connection to this alignment with our essence is pure, that is, in essence, to our greatest potential. And it is at this point that everything changes, because we live no more by the charging of the external or the expectations of others, but out of a genuine desire to be true to yourself. This is loyalty, this is liberating because it frees us from the weight of trying to be something they are not, the fear of failure, or to look different. When we embrace who we are, with all our imperfections, and light, we can begin to create a life that reflects that of authenticity. And, in the process, we discover that the real power lies in the courage to be vulnerable, to show you who you really are, without the mask, without the mask, without the mask. And it is this vulnerability that, surprisingly enough, it becomes an immense power that can transform our relationships, to open the doors which before seemed to be closed, and that leads us to a state of inner peace, genuine. For this reason, each and every step of this journey is an opportunity to grow, to expand our consciousness, to wake up to a reality that has always been there, invisible, just because you didn't know to look at it carefully. And, in doing so, we realize that the universe conspires in our favor when we are in alignment with our truth. Why, when we connect with the essence more deeply, we attract into our lives everything that makes us richer, that lifts us up, makes us feel full. There is no room for doubt or insecurity when we know who we are, in fact. And this is what gives us the strength to carry on, even in the face of these obstacles. It is because we understand that they, too, are a part of the process of growing up, the opportunity to reaffirm our connection with that which is eternal within us. I now want to go more in depth on this subject, and this connection is that it looks so simple to do, too many times, and it is also one of the most challenging to maintain. Because, in routine, in the rush of day-to-day, it's easy to lose yourself in the distractions, by this means, over the noise of the outside world who continue to keep us away from the inner silence. And it is precisely because of this silence, that which is our true essence. It tells us of who we are beyond the surface, beyond the mask. But, to gain access to it, you have to have the courage, self-discipline, and it's a provision to the earnest to be open to what is most true in all of us. It's like a daily practice of listening, care, and respect this sacred space that we have. And when you study it, you realize that everything around you starts to change, because we act from a place of greater clarity, the higher self, higher connecting with what really matters to you. This is the journey of the auto-amour of self-discovery, and to connect with our essence, that is, in fact, it is a silent revolution that is happening from within each one of us. It is not a move that need a lot of gestures or motions, but it is a transformation that comes from a recognition that everything we seek is out there, there's already within you, just waiting for us to recognize it. It is a discovery of the true freedom is not to escape, to avoid what we feel, but on a host, you understand and you integrate into every experience, every emotion, and each of the questions. Because, deep down, we are all pilgrims on the search for a sense of the truth that sets us free once and for all. And the truth is that when we connect with our essence is pure, we have been able to create a place where peace, joy, and love shall cease to dream away and have become part of our daily routine, because simply, we do recognize that they have always been there, within us, waiting to be seen, felt, and experienced. I now want to go more in depth on this subject, and this connection is that it looks so simple to do, too many times, and it is also one of the most challenging to maintain. Because, in routine, in the rush of day-to-day, it's easy to lose yourself in the distractions, by this means, over the noise of the outside world who continue to keep us away from the inner silence. And it is precisely because of this silence, that which is our true essence, it tells us of who we are beyond the surface, beyond the mask. But, to gain access to it, you have to have the courage, self-discipline, and it's a provision to the earnest to be open to what is most true in all of us. It's like a daily practice of listening, care, and respect this sacred space that we have. And when you study it, you realize that everything around you starts to change, because we act from a place of greater clarity, the higher self, higher connecting with what really matters to you. This is the journey of the auto-amour of self-discovery, and to connect with our essence, that is, in fact, it is a silent revolution that is happening from within each one of us. It is not a move that need a lot of gestures or motions, but it is a transformation that comes from a recognition that everything we seek is out there, there's already within you, just waiting for us to recognize it. It is a discovery of the true freedom is not to escape, to avoid what we feel, but on a host, you understand and you integrate into every experience, every emotion, and each of the questions. Because, deep down, we are all pilgrims on the search for a sense of the truth that sets us free once and for all. And the truth is that when we connect with our essence is pure, we have been able to create a place where peace, joy, and love shall cease to dream away and have become part of our daily routine, because simply, we do recognize that they have always been there, within us, waiting to be seen, felt, and experienced. If you've come this far, it's because that's the message he spoke to you in some way. Few people have been able to keep their attention until the end of the video as well, and if you're here it's because something in the content played an important part in your heart. He writes that it was for me. Every word, every reflection has been designed so that you can bring a little more clarity, hope, and connection to your day-to-day. And this time you brought a lot of insight and feeling. It's a way to show that the content made sense to you, and it will help to spread this message to those who most need to hear it. If this talk has made you think differently, if you subscribe to the channel to continue to walk with me on this journey of discovery and growth. Here, the purpose is just to create a space where you can meditate, learn, and grow, and always with respect and honesty. After all, this trade-off is the one that gives meaning to all of this. So, it is an invitation for you to join this community of people who seek to better understand themselves and the world around them. Now, if you want to learn more on this subject, there's a video right here on the side that complements the story, a sequel, which may help you to consolidate all of that we talked about up until now. Click there and follow me, because the journey continues, and with each step this is an opportunity for growth. And, of course, if this one story you have touched in some way, leave your like. It is a great little to help this message reach more people. I was very glad to have you with me, till the end, because it shows that you value that one moment of connection. This journey is mine, and together we can turn this thought into a daily practice of love, peace, and truthfulness. So, until the next video, where we'll continue to explore the same path with an open heart and a mind to take it.